thinking that a good idea is to try to organize these things in our room a little bit better. Um, so right now I want to um, move these room faders. It would make a lot of sense if these faders were part of each room. So let's do that. And I'm going to override this. Now, because I overrode this, our lock here is always going to be unlocked on this prefab. So I'm going to relock that and override again. And now I'm going to reset it so that this is unlocked once more. And this was room 2. As for room 1, 1 and 3 are using the same prefab. So I'm going to go to our room 3 here, which is using, if I can find it, the room fader parentheses 1. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to override and apply all. And you can see now we have a room fader on our first room. I might keep that there because if we can start and it fades automatically, I'm fine with that. Doesn't look like it does that. So um, that's just as fine as just manually disabling that on the first room. I think that's okay. As for our prefabs here, our room highlight, this is we've got waypoints in here. We have our lock detector here. I'm thinking we should put an enemy spawn location in here also. So instead of this being room highlight, this is becoming room preferences, I think would be a more suitable name. Because now we're kind of loading this up with all of our technical information. So it's slowly become a little bit more than just our highlight system. So within here, we have, I'm going to disable this temporarily just so we can see. We have a waypoint here for our room. I'm just going to duplicate that and I'm going to rename this to, oops, here we go, to enemy spawn location. And I want there to be 5 of these. I don't think we should have more than 5 enemies in a single room. So that'll be my limit. And I'm just going to remove the first one because I like having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So, but that's just my preference. Now I'm going to set up the location for each of them because I don't want them all in one spot. So I'll put one where that robot's standing. I will put another where this robot is standing. Maybe I'll put one, maybe right here. We could have another guy in the back. And maybe we'll have one like right there in the middle. And we can always move these around if it doesn't work out. But now we have 5 enemy spawn locations. And just to help me see where they are, I want to put little dots there. These are our spawn points for our enemies. Now I'm also going to copy these because I want to put them in our other room. Now, we've been doing some editing and we've been hopping back and forth updating both prefabs at the same time. The reason I only have two prefabs right now is because we're still updating these rooms. And once these rooms are complete, once we have a complete system, then we can start building other prefabs on top of this, and we can start doing, more complicated rooms, bigger rooms and stuff. But I want to get the foundation of everything in place first. So for this, we will change this to room preferences again. And paste. Oops. Let's do paste as child. And I'm going to disable that just to take a look. They look like they're in roughly the same spot. Might even move them over a tiny bit. Maybe like right there. I think that looks good. Maybe slide that guy over a little bit. Alright. I'm going to put my fader back on. And I probably should have done that on the other room as well. But for now, let's leave it off so we can see. So we've got these robot guys in here. And you can use, whatever characters you have. I just got these from a asset pack that I paid for. So we have a prefab already for these guys. I don't think we've set them up at all yet. No. So all they do is they just hang out. So I can delete them. Their prefabs are right here. So basically, I'm going to have it so each level, I'll have like something on each room that says like, what enemies should be in here. So my enemies are going to be set for each level. But I'll also show you how you can set it up so like we could have like a random type of enemy show up instead of like set enemies. Um, and we can even do like a random number, like, maybe every time you play through this level, there's a chance there's, 1 to 3 robots in the third room instead of always having two. So we can set that all up, and that way when you create your game, you can do it the way you want. So far we've been doing. Oh, let me go to the third room. We've been doing most of our stuff in our room preferences, and I think I will continue to utilize that to control what's in this room. So I am going to make another script, and this script is going to be probably like I would say, we'll make this the enemy spawner. Enemy spawn manager. And the first thing I'm going to set up is I'll do a serializable field or serialized field and private game object. I'll make it an array and we will call it enemies. Put a little underscore too, because it will be local and that's just a preference when coding. Doesn't really matter how you name it. So now I'm going to go back to my room preferences. Well, I'm going to go into the prefab, check out my room preferences here, and I'm going to put on this script. And you can see here I have an array. I'm going to hit the little lock button up here. So I'm going to find my robot prefab, and I'm going to put in there under the enemies. So I only have one for now, and I'll add a second one in a little bit, so we have a little variety. But for now, we're just going to get things spawning in. So here's our, we're going to copy this, and we're going to make the next one enemy waypoints. So we have 2 arrays. And this is still locked, so now I can select these 5 and just drag them over right here, and it will auto-populate them in. So now we have our 5 locations. The reason I'm doing this in the prefab is because now when I go into like room 1 here, let me go to my preferences. It's automatically populated with this information, and it's grabbing the children of room preferences on this specific prefab. So we won't ever have to, manually input these over and over again. However, we do have to do it for room 2 also, because that is a different prefab. So let's throw our script on that. And I'm going to grab my robot. I hit my little lock button. I'm going to grab my spawn locations and put them right there. And now this prefab is completed for that. And I'm going to save because I haven't hit save in a while. Okay, so now we have some enemies, spawn locations. We have an enemy. So let's set up an actual spawn method for this. So I don't want to just instantiate a whole bunch of enemies, and I actually have a object pool script that I like to use that I created in another project. I'm gonna bring that in, and we're gonna use this object pool to pull in these enemies, and I'll provide that as well. So I wrote this article on object pooling. This is a little more advanced, but it basically breaks everything down. I'll put a link in the description for that, but I'm also going to go over it real quick as well. It is a little complicated, which is why I've just kind of included this instead of writing it out as a tutorial, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But basically, I'm using an object pool instead of instantiating and deleting objects because it's more efficient. It's going to be less costly on your application when you're just reusing objects. So we can reuse these enemies throughout our game instead of having like say that we had like a really complex level with like 100 rooms, and then like you had 1 to 5 guys in 100 rooms. So statistically, there's a probability that you would have 500 enemies in your 100 rooms. Instead of creating 500 enemies and like deleting them as we go, we can just use this object pool that holds like 5 enemies, because there's only going to be 5 per room, and we're only going to go traveling 1 room at a time. So to efficiently do this, we could, we have a fader here. The player doesn't know that there's no enemies in the room until we get there, and this fader reveals it. So we can totally get away with not, with having all these enemies deactive until we actually reveal the room. So that would be a good time to spawn our guys. And again, instead of instantiating new guys every time and then deleting them and then instantiating and deleting, we're just going to use our object pool to recycle them. So like if we get to room 2, we kill like 5 robots. Um, they all get deactivated when they die, and then we get to room 3, we just reactivate and move them over, and they have like 100 health again. And we're just reusing the same enemies. And then we fight those 5 again, or 3, however we need. Then we go to the next room, say it's up here. Same exact thing. We're just recycling our enemies, and that way we're not creating all kinds of like memory garbage and stuff that could slow our game down. It's just going to be a lot more efficient and quicker for our design and our development. And having this black fader here is really cool because as soon as our player goes into that room, we could have them pop up and then it starts to fade. So it looks like they were there the whole time. So just to briefly go over how this works, basically we have an object pool um, prefab for our pooled objects. So we have a script here called pooled objects, and all this does is basically there's a method here for just setting the game object to false, um, and then we have a timer that's optional. This would be more for like bullets that go off screen. So you could use this for bullets as well, this object pool. And you can set a timer like, hey, if this object is, you know, enabled and active for more than like 10 seconds or more than 5 seconds, um, disable it because, throw it back into the object pool and disable it because um, it's no longer in use or is no longer needed. And that's just what this does. So this whole section here is just like when it's enabled. So this on enabled method here is saying like if this object gets re-enabled, then if we are using the auto return timer after a set time, turn it back off. And then we just have this right here that just says turn it off. So that's very simple. In the object pool itself, this is a little more complicated. Basically, we have we have a list and we have an array, which is our pooled objects. And you can read the article to get like the more in-depth description of everything if you want. But just to give you the basic idea is this is taking your pooled objects, so our robots, our enemies, or if we want bullets to fly out, we could put our bullets here. We would also create, I put it as pools, which will be the number that we want in a scene at once. So we would probably, for this situation, we would have 5 of each enemy type. And I will show you, we're going to make a game manager. And I'm going to put my object pool on that. And so let me find my robot. I'm going to put a pooled object on him. So he is now considered a pooled object. I'm not going to have the timer on him, so he's just going to stay until we get rid of him. So let me go back to my game manager. Now I can bring my robot in as a prefab here, because he has that pooled object script on him. And then I'm going to create a pool and rate 5, because we're not going to need more than 5 of this robot. Now, if I had this set to 3 robots, and then, our spawner says, I need 5, you know, what's going to happen now? Are we, we can't pull 5 out of 3. So what I've created was this little section here to increase the pool. So if you end up needing more than what's in the pool, we're going to instantiate another game object. We're going to make it enabled, or active rather, and then we're going to add him to the pool, and then we're going to return it to the pool here, or return it to this method. And what this return does is it basically says when we do a get, so we're gonna create a method that says like get this object, like get me another robot. This return is gonna say here's your other robot, and now it's enabled. So that's what this one does. It says here's your robot, and then this one says I had to create another robot. Here's your new robot. And this pulls, I guess you would call that elastic. Whereas, like, if we had like a lot of bullets on the screen, and we were like, okay, like, I don't think we would normally have more than 20, um, but you didn't take into account that like maybe the player's not, destroying the enemies fast enough, and like there's like 10 enemies on screen that just start blasting away, and it needs to go up to 200. Um, the way this works is it would create those extra 180 bullets and allow you to just keep pulling and recycling moving forward and deactivating that. So it's a very efficient system, and like I said, that's just kind of like the brief description of it. I know it took a little bit to explain it, but if you want to see the details, I did write it here on my Medium article, and you can come check that out in the description. Okay, so we're only going to need 5 robots, and we're going to call this get method from our spawn manager. So let's create a method. You know what? I want that to be public. And our enemy spawn manager is going to be in our prefabs, right? Yes. So we want to be able to find our game manager here. So we could just tag this as game manager and kind of just do a find, which might be easy, which is a little, less intensive than just doing find by name. We can do find by tag, and we're not going to tag anything else as a game manager. So that should be fine to do it this way. So yeah, we're going to do a private game object, game manager. Oops. Find things with a capital G. Capital G. And I can create this reset method and also put that in there. And what that does is when I go into here, did I have that private? I did. Let's just serialize that real quick so we can see it. So if I hit reset, we now see that it's there. But we also reset our other stuff, so I don't want to do that. But in the future, when we do put another enemy spawn manager on here, it would automatically search for this game manager. And then we can make a reference from there for the object pool. And then we can say pool dot get parentheses, and now we need the object that we want to get. So let's look at our object pool. We want to get the first prefab in there. That's going to be our robot. So pool dot prefab 0. This will be spawn robot. So that's just going to get him and enable him, but we're not doing anything with him yet. So we can take this a little bit further. Just to simplify this, we can actually just do, you don't have to make a reference here to the game manager. It's that way. We can kind of do it this way. We can like combine these like this. So now the object pool equals find game object with tag game manager dot get the component object pool. So we don't really need to keep that reference for the game manager. And yeah, we could put it there too. For the spawn, so when we spawn a robot, we can spawn him here and he just gets enabled. He's not really doing anything. It just, it was disabled and now it's enabled. But what we can do is, instead of doing it that way, we can make a reference to a pooled object. Well, we're kind of creating this new object here. And we'll just call it obj. And we'll say equals pool dot get, and then I could create like actually, yeah, we have our enemy right there, so we can do our enemies, and we know it's the robot. And we can make this our pooled objects instead of game objects. So that'll pull the same one from that list. And then we can say obj.transform.position equals, and then this is where we tell it go to, waypoint 0. Transform.position. And so now he enables and he goes to this waypoint. And we can use this to modify their scale or their position, I mean their rotation if we wanted to. Now that we have this OBJ reference that we've created for him, it's not just enabling him. We can now modify that one specifically further, um, which is important. So if we want to flip the scale, if he's facing a different direction, um, we're going to end up putting that here. But for now, let's just get our guy spawning in, and we're going to see how that looks. So just to test things out, let's put our spawn um, on start, and we should see them spawn in unless we have an error. Type mismatch. Oh, that's because we changed our game objects to um, pooled objects right here. So we're just gonna just redrag him back in for both prefabs. Oh, I did that one already. Let's get that one. There we go. And we have a robot that spawns in on each room. There should be one in this middle room too. Yep, there he is. So we don't want that on every room. So we need to create some more specific settings. So I think we should write a note here like um, if we want a specific number, and then that way we can say if we want 0 robots, or 5 robots, or 3 robots, or if we want it to be random like 1 through 3 or 1 through 5. And we can um, do that this way. So if we wanted to create a random enemy here, say we had 2 enemies in our object pool, or 20, we could just do random dot range. Nope, random dot range, and then our minimum and our max. So this should go between 0 and 1. And let me see. Oh, and yeah, I need my bracket there because this is within the array. Did I miss one? Yep, I did. And then there's a parentheses to close here. So now it could be a robot, but it could be a second enemy that we have. Same thing over here. What if we don't want it in the first waypoint? We could do the same exact thing right here. I grabbed that period. Okay. So we have 0 through 4 elements. So there are 5 waypoints, but the first one is, element 0. So that's why we have 0 through 4. And it does say this is inclusive. Oh, no, it does say it's exclusive. So if that max is exclusive, so it shouldn't capture that last number. So this should get 0 through 4, with 5 being excluded. And it should pick out just a random position within those 5. And we could take it a step further too and say like if we had a different number of waypoints, we could say enemies.length, enemy waypoints.length. So now it's going to grab the entire length of this array. So if it's 0 through 7 or 0 through 5, it could be situational. So now it'll put it in any number um, of those waypoints randomly. The only other thing we would check with that is if we decide to spawn multiple, we'll just have to make sure it's not in the same spot, and we will get to that. But let's just see how this goes. And I'm going to go to my room preferences here, and we'll add in a second enemy. So I've got this second enemy now, and I'm going to go to my room preference, and we're just going to add him in. And same thing over here. And I'm going to hit play. Okay, let's check it out. So, we're only seeing a robot, and the reason why is because in my game manager, I did not set up the new enemy as a prefab here. So now we have our new enemy, and we will have up to 5 of them at once. So now when we hit play, we'll see, look, we've got 1 Skull Knight and 2 robots. And I didn't modify his scale or anything, so that's why he shows up like that. Now, if I hit play again, now we have a robot here. And it looks like the skull guy's in the middle there. So, and for now, let's just turn off this fader so we can see everything. We'll hit play again. Look at that. Great. So now we're randomly getting enemies in random positions. We can see that this guy is on spawn location 2, and then this guy's on spawn location 4, and it looks like he might be on 4 also back here. Yep. So, looks like that's working pretty well. So now if we want to get them onto, if we want to spawn multiple enemies, we'll have to check to make sure that they don't spawn on the same location. So let's jump into that. Okay, so if we want to do a specific number or a random number, let's start with that private bool is random amount. Oops. And then I also want to do a private int for the number. So basically, if this is going to be false, then we'll have a set number of enemies to spawn. Okay, so how do we check if one of our waypoints is already occupied? One idea is we could spawn them in like 0, then 1, then 2, but then they would always be in waypoint 0, waypoint 1, 2, populating that way. I do want it more random, so if we're going to do that randomly, then we're going to have something to remember which spot is taken. So we're going to have to, every time we create or spawn in this enemy, we're going to have to kind of like save that information and say like, hey, we're going to spawn an enemy into location 1, and then we're going to spawn an enemy into location 2. So that when the third one comes and goes, hey, we want to go into 1, we can go, no, sorry, we already took 1. And this is how we're going to do that. Okay, I'm going to change this to a transform because we only need the location of the waypoints. We don't need the actual game object of it. And I already updated that in the room preferences here. Because if you change them from game objects to transforms, you will have to put them back in. And again, make sure you're editing the prefab, not the version that's there. Okay, so if we want to um, create our enemies at a random point in the array, but we don't want to have him appear in the same spot that's occupied by another one, an easy way to do this is to just shuffle the array and then place it in this shuffled order. Alternatively, we could spawn him into like this waypoint, say it's 0, and then say like, hey, if 0 is taken or true, then when the next one spawns, it can't be 0 and go to the next one. And then we'd have to have like some type of condition for each one that's for each possible waypoint. For 5, that's not too bad, but like if we had 50 waypoints, that would be a lot of work. That would suck. Um, so it would just be a lot more efficient to shuffle the array and then just, if we need 5 out of 50, we have like 5 that are shuffled in the front. And we can just go to those shuffled ones. If we had, 50 out of 50, the entire 50 are shuffled, and we'll just grab whatever ones we need from those. So it's easier just to shuffle it. There are a lot of different ways to shuffle your array. One of the easiest ways to do that I've found is to use link, LINQ. So you would go up here, you'd say using, I think it's system.link, and this is like it's like a query system, it's similar to SQL, and it's just going to make this a lot easier for us. And what we can do here, and this is going to be a little complicated, is we can do a static void um, shuffle waypoints, or we could even just say like shuffle array. And we could do our transform an array. So we could do that, but we can make it even more dynamic if we put t and then we do t and then brackets. And what this does now is, because we've put these t's here, they basically make it so instead of only a transform array, we could put any type. So the T stands for type. So we could put any type of array inside of this shuffle, and we'll be able to mix it up. So now I could shuffle the enemies, or I could shuffle the enemy waypoints, even though they're two different types. I can just use this dynamically, which is pretty awesome. So within this method, we're going to do random equals new random. Now we have an error here because it wants to use Unity Engine's random. We want to use system. Now we still have an error. So if we hit Alt and enter here, we can see it's telling us it's an ambiguous reference, which means that reference is inside of Unity Engine.random and System.random. So if we try to just get rid of Unity Engine, we don't have game objects, we don't have a serialized field, we don't have a transform, so we're missing all those. So we want to use both. So an easy way to do this, to resolve this, is to just identify which random you want. So for this method, we're going to want system.random. And I'm just hitting Alt Enter to do that. And then you can see we have the error on the random we used up here earlier. And that's going to be the Unity random. Now if we did this, we don't have our random.range. That's not inside that class. However, it is inside of the Unity Engine random class. So that's, the difference there is like they're both random classes, or they're both classes named random, but they have different methods within them that we can use. So that's why we have to identify them as Unity Engine and System. The next thing we do is we're going to grab our array, which is this whatever array we're plugging in there, and we can say array dot order by x. Do our little arrow, random dot next dot to array parentheses. So basically this line shuffles the elements of the array using link's order by method right here. For each element x in the array, the random.next is used as the key for ordering. So basically it's randomizing it and going to the next one and randomizing it. And then the to array here is just putting it back into an array. So it's kind of like, a good way to describe it is it's grabbing the array, pulling everything out of it, randomizing it, and putting it back into the array. And this is probably one of the simplest uh, ways I've found to shuffle an array. Um, so let's try it out real quick. So shuffle array, enemy waypoints. Okay. So I also changed this to an I. So enemy waypoints I. And what this is doing is the I in the for loop is just saying it's going to go through every single enemy waypoint. So this is going to do it 5 times. So let's test that out real quick. I'm just going to test the third room here, and I've checked is random amount. So we got 2 skull guys in the back and 3 robots behind them. Let's hit it again. Now those guys are in the back. Hit it again. Now we got 4 skull guys. It looks like it works. Looks pretty randomized. So let's, instead of doing a length here, let's just say it's 3. We're going to do 3 random guys instead of all 5. There's 2 robots and a skull guy there. Let's see if we can get one in the front. Points I position. Okay, let's debug.log parentheses enemy waypoint I. So I want to see which 3 they're grabbing. So we have 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. It's not very shuffled to me. So we can set this up like this, and the issue with this is that this creates the shuffled array, but it doesn't change the original array. So in order to do that, we can say enemy waypoints equals this. Now we have a new error. Cannot convert type void to Unity engine.transform. So if we change our void here to a type, a generic type, and we just return this, that should get everything working for us. So if, let me go back here, if we just do 3 here, we should start to see it in 3 different spots. So we got 2 there and 1 in the front there. And now look, they're in different locations. So now we are truly randomizing these spawn locations. And what I really like about this code right here is it's so short and simple, and it's very dynamic to use. So like we have our generic type, we have our generic array. Like you could plug any array into this and it should randomize it